Has Dave Canales finally come to his senses, and will Rico Dowdle be the featured back moving forward? Let's talk about it on this weekly Wednesday mailbag edition of the Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because on Wednesdays, like today, I answer your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is at me or DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. And let's go ahead and put a bow on the conversation that we've been having over the last 4 weeks of the season, as Rico Dowdle has been exceptional, which is what Dave Canales said on Monday. And Chuba Hubbard has been injured. Then upon returning from the calf injury that cost him 2 games, has not been anywhere close to being as productive as Rico Dowdle, which has led a lot of people to question Dave Canales' decision-making to why is Chuba back out there? Why has Rico not been the primary back the last couple of weeks? But it seems like, based off of what Dave had to say on Monday, it's going to be Rico moving forward. But still, got plenty of questions about that this week. This question coming over from Brandon saying, I understand why the Panthers are starting Chuba Hubbard. They just paid him. He's a locker room guy. My question is, at what point does playing him go from being a positive move for the locker room to a negative move? At some point, I imagine giving the worst player right now more touches will overshadow rewarding the same player for the work and leadership he does off the field. Yes, this is a common kind of feeling around the fan base right now, and has been the last couple of weeks as it pertains to the running back rotation. Even before Chuba came back, a lot of people were asking me what's going to happen when Chuba's back out there. Rico just ran for 206 yards against Miami. He just ran for 183 against Dallas. You can't possibly have a rotation with those two once Chuba's back healthy. But the reality is, though, y'all, and what we saw play out, Chuba's always going to get another opportunity to go out there and to show what he can do. And it's not based off of the compensation that he's getting this season. It's also based off of the fact that Dave Canales has experience with Chuba, and he knows what Chuba can do when he's at his best, which he has not been so far this season prior to the injury in the last 2 weeks. His hope was that with Chuba and with Rico, he could have both those players playing at their best. But that obviously has not happened. And Dave has been honest about the situation, and he answered a question about it when asked Monday about how he evaluates the running back position and how things have been playing out of recent time.
Yeah, it's a fair observation, and Chuba's meant a lot to this organization, certainly to the identity that we wanted to build our team on, and wanted to give Chuba the opportunity to go out there and to continue to impact our team in a positive way. We cannot ignore the fact that Rico has been exceptional, in a couple of games, and then in the opportunities he's had over the last 2 weeks, he's made some excellent plays. Love the tempo and violence that he's running with, and these are all things that we're talking about and working through this week as we look back, on these last 4 games and really taking a snapshot of what's been successful for us. These are conversations that we do definitely have to have.
And it seems pretty clear to me that he sees everything that y'all see, and that I have also seen, that Rico has been the better back again. He wanted to get the player that he has experience with, and who he said has been a lot to this organization, especially since he's been here the last year and a half. He wanted to give him an opportunity to come back off of injury and to perform at a level to where he could reasonably play both Chuba and Rico moving forward. But he has seen after 2 weeks that very clearly that is not working, and the best thing for this offense and for the team and what has been earned by Rico Dowdle is for Rico to be the primary back. We'll find out on Sunday, and maybe Dave will say on Wednesday at his press conference that that is indeed their plan. I don't know why he would reveal that, knowing that look at who you're playing on Sunday, Green Bay. You don't want to tell them that, hey, guys, by the way, Rico Dowdle is now our starting running back. Plan accordingly. I don't expect him to flat out tell us, but we'll see it on Sunday, I expect, there at Lambeau Field. And I really don't look at the way he's handled this and feel like he's done the wrong thing. I really don't. Because, again, he was going to give the player, not just because they paid him, but the player that he has experience with and has seen him play well, he was going to always give him an opportunity to go out there and to show what he could do and to see if both Rico and Chuba could be at their maximum performance level, and that could create a dangerous tandem in the backfield. But that has not happened over the last 2 weeks of Chuba back out there, and now you have to move forward. And when he talks about Rico being exceptional, just look at the stats so far this season. Among running backs with 75-plus carries, Rico is fifth in the NFL with 633 yards and third with 5.7 yards per carry. Looking at Chuba, he's 29th with 282 yards and 28th with 3.6 yards per carry. So far off of what Rico's done so far this season. When you look at EPA per rush, Rico is third at 0.16. That's only behind Jonathan Taylor at 0.18 and James Cook, who ran all over the Panthers on Sunday, at 0.17. The next closest player to those top three is the Bucs' Rachaad White at 0.08. Chuba Hubbard, by the way, ranks 23rd at a negative 0.12. So Rico has been among the top three backs in the NFL through the first 8 weeks of the season, and he has not been the starting running back outside of 2 games for Carolina. Looking even further, because last week when I was asked about this, I did paint a picture of maybe this is actually an advantage for Carolina to have 2 guys who were ranking in the top 35 in rushing yardage. And then when you looked at success rate, Rico is ranked currently 6th in the NFL. Chuba is ranked 11th in the NFL among the running backs there who have qualified with 75-plus carries, and that would be the best running back duo in the NFL when looking at success rate rushing on the ground. Now, Rico, when you look at just successful offensive play percentage, he's 3rd in the NFL among running backs right now, while Chuba is 17th. And then when you look at explosive play percentage, this is where there is a massive gulf. Rico is 2nd among backs, only behind Jonathan Taylor. Chuba is 29th at 4%. Rico is at 12.2% of his plays that are explosive, whether it be a 12-yard rush or a 16-yard reception. That is what he's doing 12% of the time when he gets on the field and touches the ball in these games. And then if explosive rush percentage as well, Rico's 4th so far, and Chuba is 30th. So it's very obvious, and Dave said it, that Rico Dowdle has been exceptional, that you cannot ignore that any further, and I don't expect them to do that. I'm not saying that he's ignored it. I'm just saying that he was going to give his guy an opportunity to show whether he could still be a part of the game plan at the level he had been in earlier in the season and the way that they were planning on going about things this year. But plans can change. And this plan certainly appears to have changed based off of the way that Rico has performed, but also the way that Chuba has not performed so far this season. So congratulations to everyone who's freaking out about this. Rico Dowdle is going to be the guy. And I'm not saying I'm upset about it. I'm certainly not upset about it. Just a lot of times, some of y'all really look at this with too much emotion and aren't willing to take a step back and look at it logically, understand what's at play here. And eventually the coach will get to where you want him to go to if it's the right decision. And if clearly one player is better than the next, as we hear about it being a meritocracy, having to earn your role, that's happening. So Rico Dowdle, he's a guy moving forward, and hopefully he can continue to play the way that he's played. And if he's not able to, hopefully Chuba Hubbard can come back and be somebody that can help him out as a secondary back moving forward. So that would be my expectation. And certainly sounds like that's going to be Dave Canales' expectation, at least for the time being here this season. Let's take a quick pause. We'll come back and answer more of your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Back here on Locked On Panthers, the weekly Wednesday mailbag. There's been a lot of questions about Dave Canales and how he's managing this team through 8 weeks of the season, as the Panthers sit here at 4-4, coming off of a 40-9 blowout loss at home against the Buffalo Bills as they head to Green Bay to face off against the 5-1-1 Packers on Sunday. And Alex has a question right now about that, asking simply, 8 games in, is it a stretch to say that Dave Canales' coaching / play calling has been the most consistent limiting factor for this team? And he brings up the running back rotation. He brings up some of the lack of urgency at points in times and some other things that he's been concerned about, and also concerns I've seen shared with me by a lot of you via my DMs over on Twitter at Julian Council, and Blue Sky also at Julian Council, where you can put in question for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag. So looking at Dave, I was trying to just kind of look at some numbers from the past and try to compare what he did in Tampa to what Liam Cohen did in Tampa, and then look at what Liam Cohen's done so far in Jacksonville to what Dave's done so far this season in Carolina. And you look at some of the numbers when Dave was the OC in Tampa. Remember, this is the only place that he interviewed at. Nobody else was banging on Dave Canales' door for him to be their head coach a couple of seasons ago, I guess last season. But you look at total offense. When he was in Tampa as their OC, the Bucs ranked 23rd in the league. While last year with Liam Cohen, they were ranked 3rd in the NFL. Points per game, they were tied for 20th, while the Bucs were 4th. Last year with Liam Cohen, offensive EPA, the Bucs were 17th under Dave. They were 4th under Liam Cohen. EPA per play, they were T15, while with Liam, they were 4th, and you're hearing a common theme there. Success rate, they were 29th, just ahead of Carolina, who sat at 30th a couple of years ago, while last season in Tampa, Liam Cohen was 3rd. And then explosive play percentage, 19th compared to 4th. So in every category that we look at, between Dave Canales' offense in Tampa 2 seasons ago to Liam Cohen's offense last year in Tampa, Liam Cohen had a top 5 offense, while Dave Canales had an offense that ranked between 15 and 29th in some of those categories. Really a middle-of-the-road offense in some of those key categories. And that was pretty interesting to see. I know running the ball wise, they weren't great at it a couple years ago in Tampa, and they were much better at it last year. I think adding Bucky Irving obviously helps that cause, but Carolina did run the ball well last season. And with Rico, when he's been the featured back, he has been the better runner. So we'll see moving forward if that continues to be the case, and if Carolina can continue to be one of the top rushing teams in the NFL. So that's an area that absolutely has improved under Dave. But explosive play percentage, though, that has not really gotten much better. When you look at the offense this year in Carolina compared to what Liam Cohen's doing with the Jaguars this season, the Panthers are 20th in total offense, while the Jags are 16th. So right there around the same. Points per game, Carolina's 27th. Jacksonville's 26th. Offensive EPA, looking at Carolina, they're 26th, while Jacksonville's 24th. You look at EPA per play, Carolina's 24th. Jacksonville is right there, tied with them for 24th. Success rate, the Panthers are 11th, and Jacksonville's 24th. Explosive play percentage, Carolina is 23rd, while Jacksonville's 24th. So when you look at them removed from those situations, they are pretty much the same coordinator at this point in time, early in the build there in Jacksonville. Really looking at the numbers that Dave had in Tampa, different personnel and all of that. Total offense was 313 yards 2 years ago. For Carolina so far this season, they're averaging 316 yards. Points per game was 19.9 back in 2023 with the Bucs. So far this season, it's 18.4 with the Panthers. Offensive EPA was a negative 33.24 with Tampa. So far, it's a negative 20.77 here in Carolina. EPA per play was a negative 0.03. It's a negative 0.04 right now. Success rate, that's gotten a lot better, 36.8 when he was with Tampa a couple years ago, 44% right now. And an explosive play percentage, 10.2 with the Bucs, 9.5 with the Panthers. So a lot of the numbers are very similar to what he had in Tampa a couple years ago with Baker, who's better than Bryce Young, and with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who are better than what the Panthers have at receiver. So he has worse personnel, but then he's putting up kind of similar numbers. So is he overachieving now with what he has in Carolina? Was he underachieving with what he had in Tampa Bay? I don't know. Like, the play calling leaves a lot to be desired as far as I don't love the idea of every time you're in 2-minute drill, let's run the ball on 1st down and 10. And then there's no sense of urgency you see time and time again at the end of the half with him. The play calls getting in late and some of the whole situation there with, can't think of the word, of the operation hasn't been great. And yeah, there's just sometimes where you're wondering, why are there not more shot plays? Why does everything feel so stagnant? And it feels like a lot of times too, he gets away from the run. So he's still early into this whole thing. And I don't believe that he has any appetite right now to hand over play calling to Brad Idzik, who has never called plays outside of the preseason and training camp. So I don't know if that's going to really change anything. Possibly it could. So I think maybe it's a stretch to say that Dave's been the most consistent limiting factor for the team when it comes to coaching and play calling. Yeah, he's gotten out coached plenty of times. It happened on Sunday. It's happened really every time they get blown out, which is pretty consistently whenever the Panthers lose during his tenure so far. But I'm not too hard on him at this point in time. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch, but we'll circle back to it down the road. All right, Chuck now asking, with as bad as Andy Dalton played on Sunday, do you see a scenario where Carolina keeps 3 quarterbacks on the roster and Andy and Hendon Hooker compete for the backup job to Bryce for the rest of the season? I know your thoughts on 3rd quarterbacks on the roster, but I mean, Andy also had a bad preseason as well and is pushing 40 years old. Is a red rifle now the red musket? Curious to know your thoughts. So he played a little bit against Cleveland, right? He got hurt almost immediately against Houston and did not play in the preseason against Pittsburgh in that finale where it was Jack Plummer and then it was Bryce Perkins. So I can't really agree that he had a bad preseason. He wasn't really out there for the preseason games. But yeah, he was horrible on Sunday. We all saw it. He recognized it. He said, I had to give my team a chance to win. Yeah, we know, Andy. Feel bad for him because he's late in his career. Not going to get a lot of opportunities to start. Maybe gets a chance at redemption this Sunday for Carolina's sake. That's hopefully not going to happen if they want to win against Green Bay, which I find to be highly unlikely anyways, whether Bryce plays or not. But no, I don't see them carrying 3 quarterbacks at this point in time. And if they're going to have a competition between Andy and somebody else to be the backup, I would guess it'd be Mike White, who does have starting experience in this league. And I'm guessing it's probably someone that they may like more than Hendon Hooker as time goes on. We'll see, because they didn't even give Hendon an opportunity on Sunday. And I don't really understand why he wouldn't just get to go play the last couple series when you're down 40-3, then 40-9. I don't know what good that was doing anyone to have Andy out there during that point in time, especially not knowing whether Bryce is going to play this upcoming Sunday. Why put your backup quarterback and potential starter this upcoming week at Green Bay in jeopardy of getting injured when offensive linemen were dropping like flies all throughout that game on Sunday. That did not make a ton of sense to me, and I don't expect that they're going to keep 3. They would have to, and they could elevate somebody like they did, but the only reason they elevated Hendon was because they needed a backup. I don't think they're going to sign 3 to the active roster. That's a waste of a roster spot because Hendon Hooker and Mike White, neither one of those guys is going to go out there and pull a Joe Webb and a Taysom Hill and play special teams. So no point in having them up there on game day. So, yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a competition. Dave came out pretty emphatically after the game and said that absolutely Andy will be their backup moving forward behind Bryce. It was one bad game, but we went over it yesterday. His last 4 starts have really been bad. So I don't really know what they see at this point in time, other than a veteran who is a good locker room presence. And that's it. That's all I got. So yeah, is a red rifle now the red musket? Is a musket worse than a rifle? I guess so. But yeah, I don't see them wasting a roster spot on a third quarterback. And I don't see right now them moving off of Andy as their backup at this point in time. The hope is you don't have to see him because he's a backup for a reason. All right, take a quick pause, come back and answer the rest of your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Few more questions here on this weekly Wednesday mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers. Now over to Gus, who has a question about Ickey Ekwonu, asking me, what's the outlook on Ickey going forward? Seems to have improved on pass protection, penalties. I don't recall him being mentioned on the broadcast really at all this year, as in a positive. Has he justified an extension? This is funny because I had another person in my DMs on Sunday asking me, is it time to be concerned about Ickey Ekwonu? I think he actually asked, is it time to panic? And I said, you can panic if you want. I'm not panicking. I don't really feel like there's any reason to panic. Now, I went back, look back at the game. He did give up that one sack to Joey Bosa. The other fumble that Andy had there in the second half, Ickey's getting pushed back into him. He fumbles then. So, okay, not ideal, but he graded out pretty well on Sunday. And if you look at his PFF grades, actually, he's graded out really well throughout the season. His overall grade right now, y'all, is 75.6. That is 17th out of 77 offensive tackles. Pass block grade is 70.2. That's 30th out of 75 offensive tackles. And run block grade is 76.8. That's 9th out of 77 offensive tackles. Now, I found this on the PFF premium stats page. This website is just a nightmare. You go on the player page, gives you entirely different stats. You go on the player grades page where it just shows everybody positionally wise, gives you completely different numbers. You go on the premium stats page, it gives you at least the same numbers as the player grades one. So these are the stats I have. Maybe you look at something different, but looking at it, his overall grade and pass blocking grade are the best of his career so far through 8 weeks in 7 games that he's played. He's credited with 2 sacks and 19 pressures at this point in time and has a 7.5% PFF pressure percentage allowed, which is 29th out of 36 starting tackles who have played at least 400 snaps this season when looking over at True Media, which at this point in time would be the worst of his career. He had a 5.3% as a rookie, 6.5% the next year when he really struggled and y'all wanted to get him the hell out of town or at least have him move to guard. Then last year, 7% so far this year, again, 7.5%. So overall grade, pass blocking grade, the best so far of his career, and the run blocking grade, it's right there where it was last year. It was a 77.0 last year, 76.8. So that has not dropped off. That has consistently been where he's been at really since his rookie year. His sophomore year, last year, and this year, he's been excellent when it comes to run blocking for the Panthers. Now, as far as has he justified getting an extension, I remember asking Brant Tillis, the executive vice president of football operations, this back during training camp. He handles salary cap and contracts. I asked about Ickey because they were still working on a deal with Taylor Moton, which of course got done. And that was, I think, I want to say that was the same day where Taylor was emotional about how much he's appreciated being out here in Carolina, having his family here. He cried. And Brant was back there watching and then talked to us right afterwards. So a little bit of an awkward situation. Now, of course, a couple weeks later, that all got taken care of, and Timo's here to stay, at least for the next couple of seasons, as starting right tackle for the Panthers. I asked him, though, about Ickey, and he said that they're not there yet with Ickey at that point in time in August. It may have been July, as far as things go with his contract, as there had been some guys who had been tackles who had their fifth-year option exercise, and then that year later on in July or in August, they were then given an extension. Now, that has not been the way that Carolina has operated under this regime, with Dave Canales and with Brant Tillis and with Dan Morgan as their general manager. They have gone about it where they have had somebody have their fifth-year option exercise, and then next year they've extended them. Now, that's really been one person. That's been J.C. Horn. But even the year prior, after they traded away Brian Burns, they took care of Derek Brown. And Dan had been here already. So he, I'm sure, was a part of the planning that they had moving forward with DB, to where fifth-year option, then you go ahead and give him the extension heading into that fifth-year option year. They did that with JC, where they really bet on him. It paid off. He's been excellent again this season, was excellent last year, finally able to stay healthy. And right now, as far as some of the PFF grades and the pressure numbers and the sacks that have not really been given up this season, it feels like Ickey's headed in that direction. Now, there's still some things they got to figure out as far as we're going to do with the quarterback, and we're going to do with some other position groups out there to improve the roster at the end of the season. Like offensive line-wise, they're good with Timo. They're good with Rob Hunt. And I would think Damian Lewis, the way he's been playing so far this year, if Cade's able to play out the rest of the season at center, you would think that he's in line to continue to be the center. So they have a chance to keep all five of who would be the primary starters on this roster moving forward into next season when those guys are healthy. So we'll see. I do think he's on track to get that extension, and we'll see if they want to make him play out another year and then go into it to where they could franchise tag him, get a deal done, or maybe have him on the trade block. I think it's headed probably towards Ickey getting an extension with Carolina after the season, but there's still 9 games left to go. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks, or not couple of weeks, say the last 2 months of the season, if he is able to show enough to where Carolina wants to go ahead and take care of him after the year is over. Final question coming from David, who says to me, so everyone is talking about the running back room and the split times. I'm looking at the tight end room. Mitchell Evans has really impressed me this year, and to me should be tight end 1 at this point. He has great hands, has a great run blocking grade so far. Has he made the case to pass Tommy Tremble and JT Sanders, since he is a more complete tight end? So it's not just coming for Andy Dalton's job as a backup quarterback and Chuba Hubbard's job as the starting running back. Now y'all are coming for JT Sanders and Tommy Tremble's jobs here this season. I kid, of course, but looking at the numbers, and speaking of PFF, which that's what David brought up, Mitchell Evans is actually the highest graded player on the Panthers offense. Yeah, that's true. He has an 84.1 overall grade plus a 77.4 run blocking grade. Compare that to JT Sanders, has a 51.5 grade and a 56.8 run blocking grade. Tommy Tremble, 57.2 overall grade, 62.3 run blocking grade. So Mitchell Evans has been, based off of what PFF's showing, a much better and complete tight end so far this season than Tommy and JT. Now, understand JT did miss 3 games with a high ankle sprain, then came back last week against the Jets, played this past Sunday against Buffalo, where he played a little more snaps than he did the week prior compared to what Mitchell Evans was playing. And that's something to take into consideration. Now, receptions-wise, Mitchell Evans has 9 receptions for 90 yards for 2 touchdowns. Tommy has 18 for 130 and a touchdown. JT has 14 for 111 yards. Snap count, Mitchell's played 183 snaps. Sanders played 188, and that's missing 3 games. Tommy Tremble playing in every game. That's 326 snaps. Not really that surprising considering I figured they would lean on him anyways as a vet in that room, and the fact that JT had missed some time. And they played a fair amount of 2 tight end sets so far this year as well. I think really what's allowed Mitchell to kind of shine is the fact that JT was out. And we have not seen JT get off to a great start in the first half of the season, even before the ankle injury. Had some drops that really are unacceptable, like the game in Jacksonville and in Arizona. Hasn't got that many opportunities since returning the last couple of weeks. We'll see if he can turn it on and get back to the player that he was at the middle part of last season before he got injured with the neck injury against Kansas City, I believe in week 12. And Tommy's still kind of who Tommy's been. You have a point, though. Mitchell has been quite possibly the most complete tight end. I wondered once they drafted him because he had been a blocking tight end. And then he got the opportunity to be a pass catching tight end and really their best pass catcher at Notre Dame the last couple of seasons, if he would be the most complete tight end coming in. Whereas you looked at JT, a lot of questions about him as a run blocker. And you looked at Tommy, he was a blocking tight end back in college and not a receiving tight end. And it's so hard for those guys to all of a sudden become big time receiving threats, which of course has not happened and is not going to happen for Tommy Tremble in Carolina. But for Mitchell, maybe he could be the most complete tight end, and we'll see if the meritocracy shifts its motion or its eyes over to the tight end room, and Mitch Evans ends up being to tight end 1 moving forward, like David thinks should be the case, or at least could be the case. All right, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe and follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where again, y'all, I am with you every Wednesday, answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. At me, DM me, get those questions in after the game on Sunday against Green Bay. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, and as always, keep pounding. We're back tomorrow for the weekly crossover Thursday episode that we have presented by Prize Picks with Peter Bukowski, the host of Locked On Packers, breaking down the Panthers road trip to Lambeau Field.